Although maker culture discourse tends to suggest that these practices are a new thing and look at all these fancy things that you need to buy in order to engage in them, the author suggests that practices discussed in maker culture have in fact been a core part of vocational education throughout much of the 20th century, and only recently has it been turned into a movement for middle-class kids. Here's a quote from page 212. Quote, "In the process, working class communities of color are once again positioned as targets of intervention rather than sources of deep knowledge and skill. And dominant communities are reinscribed as being ahead with something to teach or offer rather than something to learn." End quote. This is a really important quote to think about. So in what ways might we as CS educators unintentionally be coming into some of the communities that we work into as if we are the people who has the knowledge while ignoring or considering the community members that we're working with as having some kind of a deficit? Here's a quote from page 213. "We agree that there is a need to transform what counts as learning and that making can play an important role in this expansion. However, we question the idea that the maker movement, and specifically its forays into the educational sphere, has thus far represented a bold step towards equity. As Barton, Tan, and Greenberg note, maker spaces that have reached beyond dominant populations are the exception and not the norm, with little research documenting what is working, how, or why." End quote. I totally agree that there's not enough research on makerspaces, especially at the time of this publication, which was about 3 years ago at the time of this recording. However, I would argue that much of the maker culture scholarship is useful for understanding these spaces that blur together a variety of practices that blur disciplinary boundaries that are often siloed in a formalized educational context. This excerpt was from CSK8 podcast number 18, which is titled "Making Through the Lens of Culture and Power Toward Transformative Visions for Educational Equity." You can listen to the full episode as well as hundreds more at jaredoleary.com or by simply searching for the CSK8 podcast on your favorite podcast app so you can learn more about computer science education.